Attention, culture consumers. Join me, the queen of queries, Sarah O'Connor, and my band of nerdy knights.
Colleen McMillan.
Flo Siegel.
And Anders Drew.
On Bohemian Geek Studies, where we take extremely dorky dives into our favorite fandoms, especially that Star Wars galaxy far, far away. Listen each week as we examine the stories that mean so much to us. Bohemian Geek Studies is available wherever you get your podcasts and is proudly part of the Forgotten Entertainment family.
Hey, it's Andrew Morgan, host of the Nomcast, the Netflix original movie podcast. Each week, we review the biggest Netflix original movies with special guests from the film industry, the music industry, comedians, and of course, our fellow podcasters. Check us out on the web at nomcastpod.com. Follow us on the socials at nomcastpod. And most importantly, listen and subscribe to us wherever you get podcasts. Hit that beat one time.
Hello there. I'm Colleen.
I'm Anders.
And I'm Daniel.
We're three nerds who met through our love of science fiction and fantasy storytelling. Of course, one of our favorites is George Lucas's signature achievement, Star Wars.
And if there's one thing the internet definitely doesn't have enough of, it's nerds talking about Star Wars. So here we are with yet another Star Wars podcast. Every week, we journey to a galaxy far, far away and discuss one of the films in the current Star Wars canon.
This week, we're taking a look at Star Wars fandom in this special bonus episode discussing the 2009 film Fanboys. Colleen, Anders, you two got your cosplay ready?
Do my Dangerous Nick Mickey Mouse ears count?
I don't know about that, but as for me, absolutely not. Never have, most likely won't.
I will at some point.
Maybe once. I'll actually get to that in a little bit. But I do have a few just general details about this movie. So Fanboys was written by Ernest Cline and Adam F. Goldberg, and it was directed by Kyle Newman. It stars Sam Huntington, Kristen Bell, Jay Baruchel, Dan Fogler, and Chris Marquette as a group of friends who travel across the U.S. to break into the Skywalker Ranch and see the Phantom Menace before it's released. And one of them, Marquette's character, dies of terminal cancer. Several hijinks and crimes ensue. Ultimately, Marquette's character is successful and sees the movie before he dies, and their remaining friends attend the opening night for the new Star Wars film. So guys, generally, what'd you guys think of this film?
Okay, so I had never seen this before. I thought this captures 1999 so perfectly. It was very funny. I enjoyed this.
The music. Oh my God.
The music. I mean, it's very much a product of its time of the early 2000s, because even though this was released in 2009, they started filming this back in like 2006, 2007, and then they just had a bunch of delays, that backed everything up. Now, what I find to be the best part of this movie is the emotional through line of Chris Marquette's character. I'm blanking on his name, poor guy. He passed away. And Linus, thank you. Passes away in the movie and I can't even remember his name. I mean, I thought that the emotional through line of that was very well done, and a lot of good humor and just a lot of love for Star Wars you could tell in this movie. It was fun. I really liked it.
Ooh, woof. Well,
I will get into my size like that later.
Later. I saw this back when it came out, but I didn't remember much of it. Upon my rewatches, like, oh, that happened. All right. I found it to be really funny at certain parts, but the tone feels kind of all over the place. I liked it better when they went for the friendship stuff. Like that hit harder than the kind of ridiculous comedy that they were trying to do. I think I blocked out most of the misogynistic stuff, honestly, because I did not remember a lot of those parts. Like the Flash, if you love Wookiees, like for real, are we 12? I guess we're 12. That aside, like the lead actors are super engaging. You believe in their friendship. They're really enjoyable. I love Sam Huntington from Being Human. And seeing like he's a super hot werewolf on that show, and seeing him here so young was really weird. Like he's a baby. He has such a baby face. He's kind of like the Paul Rudd in this movie. He just doesn't age. I love the cameos for the most part, although Seth Rogen's two characters, you could cut them out of the movie and I'd be fine. And then seeing Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith is always fun, but their part was super cringy. Can we not, with like the pedophile subplot, like let's not do that?
Yeah, that was a weird part. I saw this movie a few years after it came out originally, and I remember just enjoying it. And this time when I watched again, I enjoyed myself. I was laughing a lot. I loved, like you both said, that emotional through line of the friendship, of reconnecting with your friends through a love of fandom. I mean, hell, that's why the three of us are here.
Mhm.
Yes.
But there were several parts of it. I 100% understand putting Kevin Smith in a Star Wars fan movie. That just makes total sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, that scene was just kind of weird. I will disagree with you, Colleen. You can absolutely make one of Seth Rogen's characters not a pimp, but those two characters I thought were hysterical.
I mean, the
so
Trek
funny.
guy was funnier, but the pimp, like, once again, the misogyny, the pimp, like, really,
Yeah.
do we need
Right, you could have that.
this?
You could have that exact character just without him being a pimp.
Like a boyfriend, like he's their boyfriend or something. Like they're a throuple, and he's the boyfriend, and he's like, "Excuse me now." It's not about to
Instantly
become a
better.
quintet.
All right, so let's kind of take a look now at some of our particularly standout funny moments, the things that we did think were super, super funny in this movie. Daniel, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. So I think right off the bat, the opening crawl, very funny. I love the little jokes they put in there. And as soon as the crawl's done, you get people arguing about perpetuating the myth of Boba's badassness. What a fantastic way to start. I know that I've had that exact argument with friends before in the past, until, you know,
We talked about it
Mandalorian
like
season 2.
just a little bit on our Empire pod.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now it's nice seeing those conversations play out exactly like I would have. Just wait until Mandalorian season 2, boys. You know, minus Linus, R.I.P. Sorry about that. The screaming match about whether or not Luke and Leia were into the kiss.
Yes.
That is fantastic.
So
Luke was
real.
so into it.
The fact that Eric has the bad trip, of course he does. Of course the uptight friend is the one who has the bad trip. And then Carrie Fisher's cameo
So good.
with the "I know" when Linus says that he loves her. Just it was great. There's some bits that didn't age as well. I think that's something that anytime we view comedies that were set or filmed several years before the viewing date, you're always going to run into that stuff. There were some homophobic and some transphobic jokes that stood out to me. And like you said, the pedophile joke, the fact that Jay Baruchel's character is cybering with a 10-year-old, that's not great. Not great. Liberal uses of the word, the F word, I'm not going to use that, even though, yeah. And then the fact when Jay Baruchel's character is talking about his online girlfriend and they're talking about whether she has a dick. Yeah, some of the stuff not great, but at the same time, you're going to find that in every comedy movie that you go to throughout the years. I think you're going to have more or less levels of forgiveness based on when you've seen it. So I've grown up with some movies from the 70s, like Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, stuff like that. And you go back and see some of those jokes and you're like, oh God, like I never thought about it like that. But, you know, if you watch at a young age, you're not going to catch all that stuff.
It's your classic.
Yeah, it's your classic. Exactly. So you're a little bit more forgiving, things like that. So while I did enjoy the movie, I laughed at a good amount. There were several things that, you know, just pulled me out of it. And especially I do have to circle back to the Jay and Silent Bob cameo. The forced prostitution is that's bad. That was bad.
Of all the like absolute randomness that happens in this movie, that was the one that I was the most just like, why? Who wrote this?
That one made me like physically cringe. So it's a good metaphor, though, I guess you could say, for how it's like to be a gay fan in nerd culture sometimes, where you're like, oh, I really enjoy this. And then all of a sudden something or someone says something that makes you go, oh, right, I'm not always welcome here. But, you know, the attitudes have changed a lot since 2009. So, you know, it's something you just got to take with the time. It's very indicative of the time it came from.
Definitely, for sure. It's disappointing, but you can totally understand where it comes from. Like, yes, I understand why they did this. And set in 1999, when like online dating and stuff was a little newer, they would be making fun of their friend for making a friend online. For real.
It feels very realistic of the time period, but it's still not fun to see always.
No. Not at all. Just not.
Yeah.
So like half of the movie would almost be gone, I think.
Right.
Like you said, like these movies like this, especially like the raunchy dude comedy, it evolves over time. Like you can go back and watch like Porky's or Animal House or Revenge of the Nerds and just be like, this is awful.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
pretty much the entire movie is awful. Like you can't, it legitimately can't watch it anymore. This movie feels like it wants to be a Judd Apatow movie at times with like they're trying to pull the heartstrings, but it didn't have enough of that. Like I wanted more of the heartfelt stuff and less of the dude bro, we can't let women into our van nonsense. I thought the funniest parts were the Star Wars arguments. Hysterical.
Exactly.
And when they were in George Lucas's house threatening to break stuff, I was like, oh my God.
Oh, that scene is fantastic.
I'm gonna light Yoda on fire. Like, no, you're not.
And who was it? Is it Will Arnett? Was that
Will
guy?
Forte?
Will Forte was the
yeah.
one guy who was just like, no, you're not.
No,
He's like, I can see you. It was a total Indiana Jones callback. Like, sure, you will.
Oh, and the Willow shout out. Nobody cares about Willow.
Nobody cares about Willow.
I like Willow. Those parts are funny. Like the actual fandom stuff was hysterical. I could totally get behind all of that.
It definitely was. And yeah, circling back to the a lot of the casual homophobia and transphobia that was in this movie definitely stood out to me more this time. Like, I don't want to say I blocked it out. I probably just rolled with it when I saw it the first time, and I'll definitely, won't hide. I was almost definitely laughing at it the first time I saw it, but people and things change over time. You realize things like that probably shouldn't. I actually found myself thinking at a couple of those scenes this time, if they were to try and make this movie today, how would that be different? And the one that stood out to me was either one of the bits where they are, making fun of him for having an online girlfriend and saying, oh, she has a dick. Or when they're in the Vegas hotel room and Kristen Bell just like looks up and is like, this is so gay. And that's a joke that just would not happen today. But if you were to put that in, the bit, if you made this movie in 2020, 2021, would be that they would say that. And then like everyone else in the room would be like, whoa, like
Or
calling the person out, and we'd be laughing at
gay,
them.
And they'd say, ugh, this is so straight.
So I took notes during that scene because I said, excuse me, Kristen Bell, 4 men in a hotel room sitting there doing nothing.
They were watching Stargate.
That's not gay. Yeah. I'm sorry, not to get too crass, but things could be way different if you're saying it's four gay men in a hotel room. Come on, Kristen Bell, you don't know what you're talking about.
Not even a little bit.
And then the one other bit that just always sticks out in my mind is because I actually had a friend who did this, I think as a result of this movie. I can't remember if he did this before or after, but I had a friend who, when you wanted to call shotgun in his car, you called Chewie.
That made me laugh so hard. That's so brilliant. I did just want to shout out 2 quick little like throwaway lines that had me laugh so hard when they all get together again at the very beginning at the party. And oh my gosh, I'm forgetting everyone's names now. I think Hutch is the one who goes, oh man, it's been parsecs since I've seen you. And I just started laughing so hard. I was like, that's distant.
Yes. He's the one that makes like a Steinbeck comment too. I was like, what?
Right?
Like, oh, you know about Of Mice and Men? Okay.
And then when he's yelling with his mom and he's like, I have renter's rights. And she just responds, you don't pay rent. Just the little cutaway jokes like that made me laugh.
You don't pay rent at the carriage house?
The carriage house, yes.
Another one that, especially for millennials, probably hits home a little bit.
Yeah.
We're all like,
Like, I would gladly live rent-free in the carriage house.
Yeah.
I'll call it whatever you want.
For real. Oh my God.
But, one thing that this movie definitely is chock full of is Easter eggs and references to properties that came before it. Obviously Star Wars stuff, but also a few other things. Daniel, you want to take us through a couple of those?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, the opening crawl just made me laugh so hard. The fact that they started it with an opening crawl is fantastic, and that it was self-referential. Absolutely love that. The what in Greedo's name? Just a fantastic way to be like, what? Like, and then during the drug scene when
Oh.
I think it's Jay laughs in Salacious B. Crumb's little laugh. Perfect.
I saw that.
It's perfect.
I saw that
The
and I
fact-
immediately thought of you.
Danny
Yes.
Trejo, man.
Thank you.
Freaking Danny Trejo just owning it. in this
I love
movie.
Danny Trejo.
He was smiling so much. I was kind of like, who is this?
Put Danny Trejo in anything, it'll work out.
Yes, it's true.
Oh my god.
Another one that was actually a double Easter egg when they go to get coffee in the aforementioned, unfortunately, pedophile scene.
Yeah.
They do go to Jabba the Hutt is the name of the coffee shop. So that's obviously a reference to Jabba, the giant slug that enslaved Carrie Fisher and paid the price. But it's also where Kristen Bell worked in the show Veronica Mars. That was the name of the coffee shop she had a part-time job in.
I never knew that. I loved it when I saw that Jabba the Hutt, though. I was like, "This is what a perfect pun."
It's the name of their like coffee corner too at Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
Their coffee area is
Smart.
called Jabba the Hutt. It's so good.
Smart.
Then we get to see Billy D. Williams as the judge.
Slay on Billy D.
Just being slick, being as cool as
That voice.
And then one that's may or may not have been an intentional one. I saw it as one. I don't know. At one point, Sam Huntington is contemplating life and is outside the van staring off into the sunset, and it looked like a complete recreation of Paul Dano in Little Miss Sunshine. So much so that I actually forgot that it was Paul Dano in that movie and not Sam Huntington in my head.
I got so confused reading the outline when we first were doing this because I was like, wait, Paul Dano was in this movie?
Yeah, it was such a recreation that I completely crossed the two in my mind.
It did look like that a lot for sure.
man.
And then the other friend
it's-
comes out, sits next to him, and does kind of just like the hand on the shoulder.
Everything's gonna be fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's all gonna be okay. This one is my favorite. Carrie Fisher as the doctor. I love
Yeah.
her. She's just good in
Yeah.
everything. Any cameo she has, I'm all in. Give us more Carrie. The fact that Marquette got to kiss her, I was like, oh my god. And
Probably
she let
made
him.
that guy's day.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's like, I get to kiss Carrie Fisher. I get to kiss Carrie Fisher. I get to kiss Carrie Fisher. Doesn't matter what age she is. She still looks fantastic. And then this one was one of my personal favorites. Ray Park showing up. A couple of us didn't think Maul at first because he's not in makeup. We thought Toad from X-Men.
Yes. That was sadly my first thought, just because no
his
makeup.
accent. Yeah, no makeup. It's his real accent. So I saw Toad first also. And then I'm like, oh, wait, that's Maul. Oh, man. And then him twirling the batons. I was like, ooh, hey, what's up, guy?
It's a couple of nice little flip moves in there too.
Yeah, right?
Mhm.
I just have a few others I wanted to throw out
Mhm.
there. When they go to visit Linus and he's just got the Palpatine Pez. I was like, oh my gosh, Pez. What a
Yes.
throwback. And then where is the other one? Oh, when they start the car and it's got the Falcon noise. The fact that the
Oh,
van
yeah.
starts with the Falcon noise is
And
just
R2 on the
yes.
I think
Which,
it even does it
thank you-
make the noise when they quote unquote go to hyperdrive? Does it
Yes.
make like the R2 squeal?
Yeah. And the R2
Mhm.
screams. Yeah, that part.
So thank you, George Lucas, for watching an early cut of this movie, liking it, and then allowing them to use official Star Wars audio. Like, thank you, George, for that.
Mhm. Yes. It would have been so different if they didn't have those kind of
Right.
things.
So I think the next
Oh,
thing we
man.
wanted to talk about, kind of moving away from just the specific details of the movie, but what does this movie do to comment on the entire concept of fandom? Because obviously that's the central tenet of this movie.
So this was an interesting experience for me because I, was 6 years old when this movie, or not when this movie, excuse me, when Phantom Menace, the focus of this movie,
Youths.
came out. Yeah, the youths.
I didn't know you were that
Oh.
much of a youth. Jeez.
Yeah, I was 6 years old in 1999. So I was not able to experience that kind of hype just because I was just watching the original trilogy then. So this was fun to watch, thinking about my perspective of going to see episode 7, because that was kind of the one that I was, around their age for. So that was fun to watch because I remember how hyped my brother and I were, my roommate and I were, just sending these screenshots back and forth, and have you seen the trailer yet? And we got to watch it together, and watching all these breakdown videos. And it's interesting how different it is to be a nerd in this time period, excuse me, because it's way more acceptable. People were kind of making fun of them, and they're off at the comic shop, and it's kind of implied that they're a little more on the outcast side. But I mean, now with the MCU and Star Wars being so mainstream, nerd culture is the main thing.
Yeah, it's the driving force of Hollywood right now.
Yeah. So I
will be
didn't
for a long
really.
time.
Oh, and I love that. I didn't really have the kind of outsider perspective of things. I just recognized myself in the joy of the fandom and how much they loved it, but I didn't as much understand the outsider perspective because I've never really had to worry about that throughout my fandom of stuff.
The waiting outside at the theater is probably a foreign concept to a lot of the younger people. When you can order your tickets online now, that was a thing. You had to wait in line, sometimes overnight in their tent, in order to get tickets to go see a movie. So that was kind of wild to see and be like, oh crap, we don't do that anymore. The countdown is hysterical. I love it. I have so many Star Wars countdowns going right now, you guys. I have book releases, TV show releases, which we just learned The Bad Batch is going to have its release date on May the 4th. Be with you this year.
Yes.
And then, of course, the new movies that are going to be coming out. I've got like spreadsheets of times and dates I need to watch for. There's a couple books that are going to be coming out very soon that I'm excited about. Oh, I need the new Thrawn book like yesterday. I don't want to wait for April. I need it right now.
That will be great. And oh my God, The Bad Batch. I'm so excited.
Right.
Yes, I'm ridiculously excited about that.
Yeah. What about you guys, this kind of concept? Because again, one of the tenets of this movie is this friendship and how it has actually evolved and changed. Sam Huntington's character has kind of quote unquote grown out of it at the start of the story and kind of gets himself back into it.
Lies. Deception.
Lies. He sits on a throne of lies. But this concept of trying to put that stuff in your past and this whole debate over nostalgia and how much is healthy and whatever it is. I mean, did you guys experience anything like that? Daniel, you said you kind of grew into your fandom a little bit.
Yeah, I never really grew away from any of my fandoms. I just kind of got more into them. I really loved Star Wars as a kid, and like I would watch the movies all the time, and I had my Legos that I played with, and I still miss those. I wish I had those back. But I mean, I think I was more of like a Harry Potter nerd as a kid, because I read those books. I read the first one in second grade, and then the final movie came out the summer that I graduated high school. So it was my childhood. Like I grew up with those. So Star Wars I grew into more and more as I think like 2015, 2014, the lead up to The Force Awakens, I really grew into more and more of a Star Wars fan. But I've never really strayed away from any of these. And most of my friends have gotten nerdier as the years go on. So it's been nice. Like I haven't had to worry about any of my friends being like, oh, you still like that? Like I've got a book club going on with one of my friends where we're rereading Lord of the Rings. My roommate is a bigger Star Wars nerd than me. He's got all these lightsabers out in our living room that we keep on display. Like it's nice having not only my friends but my family care about it too. Like my whole family were into Harry Potter. My mom's the one who got me into Star Wars, and so she was so excited when new movies were coming. It's been nice. I've never really had to stray away from it. I've only just gone deeper into the waters.
It's so awesome. My mom could give two shits about Star Wars or most fantasy sci-fi stuff. That's just not her jam. Most of my friends, though, who were really into Star Wars when we were younger are still loving it. We go to the movies and stuff, and we comment on the TV shows. It's actually me who was the one who kind of jumped onto the big fan train. Like I'd always liked it. I like Star Wars. I've seen it since I was 7 or 8. Like 2019 came and I was like, ooh, what's this Rebels show? And then I was like in like Flynn. I was in completely. I love Rebels. We're going to talk about that at some point, I'm sure.
Cannot wait.
And yeah, I love Rebels so much. I'm
So
sure that my
much.
friends do get a little overwhelmed though, because it's a new kind of like a new fandom for me. And I get obsessive about fandom stuff pretty quickly if I really enjoy it. So I'm sure
Mhm.
they're just like, oh my God. But that's what the podcast is for, so I can talk to you guys about it instead of bothering them.
Exactly.
So I love
Happy to be
talking
there
about
for you,
it.
Colleen.
Yay! I don't want to hold back. Like I don't want to hold back that I enjoy something.
Definitely. I'll say I think Star Wars especially, I've definitely grown into my fandom. I always liked it. I always loved watching it. I started discovering things like Clone Wars after they had come out, and it wasn't really until maybe until the last year and a half to 2 years that I started to kind of meld all of that into a cohesive unit, a fandom type unit that
Mhm.
I really embraced. I also grew up with Harry Potter. I was one of the kids who, as the books came out every year, I was just about the age. The final
Mhm.
book came out when I was a senior in high school. The final movie came out like right as I was graduating college. So it was like these big transitional periods for me. I had access to book 6 the day before it came out. So I actually finished it before the midnight release.
Ooh. Did you get one of those
Excuse me,
early
sir?
mailed copies that people were like,
I had a friend
That was
whose
a
grandmother
mistake.
worked at a distribution warehouse.
ooh,
Ooh.
that's a fireable offense.
Yep.
Like real
It
fireable.
well, when the 7th one came out, the manager was finally like, "Guys, we're not doing this anymore. We cannot do this for this one."
We cannot.
Oh yeah.
I know you've been doing this for the last couple. We can't do it for this one.
Ooh, yeah, that would have been a big no.
Yeah.
Wait,
worked
I
at
have a
Barnes and
quick
Noble, and that would have been like, you're done.
I have a quick anecdote about the 7th Harry Potter book. My dad took me to the midnight release at Walmart, and we see this nervous guy in front of us, and like we're like, "Hey, man, like it's coming out soon. Like, why are you so jittery?" And he's like, "My wife is in labor right now. I want to be there. She told me that I have to be here to get the book, though." So this
Commitment.
this
Oh my
poor guy
God.
was like, "I want to see the birth of my child, but my wife wants this book so bad."
But I mean,
That would totally be me.
But I
Be like, get your
admired
ass to the
her.
bookstore right now.
Yeah, I admired her. I was like, yes, woman, you
F
know what
these
you
ice
I'm gonna be
want.
chips.
stuck in this hospital bed for the next couple of days. Give me the damn book.
Yeah, you can hold the baby then for like
Yeah,
2 days.
I
I
rearranged
respected
my
it.
work schedule so that I could read the 7th book.
That's fair. I think I
Um,
stayed awake for 2 days straight.
but,
reading it.
Back into Star Wars.
Mm.
I will say I've never been into like what people might think of as the traditional stereotypical like quote unquote fandom life. Like I have never cosplayed.
Yeah.
I have no real intentions of doing that. There is one point my friends and I maybe like 3 years ago we're talking about going to New York Comic Con, like doing the Comic Con. Let's do it. Let's go all out.
Yeah.
And my mother was actually like in the next room or something like that. And she poked her head in, heard what we were talking about, and looked at my one friend who was definitely the least nerdy among us, also probably the most accomplished, like power to her. And my mom was giving her this look that is like, please tell me you're the reasonable one here. And the next words out of my friend's mouth were, well, what are we going as? Because if we're doing this, we're doing this. Like if we're doing this, we're going all the way. And I would
hell
definitely,
yeah.
I look forward to doing that, like someday, doing like a full-on cosplay thing, putting that kind of effort into it, and just enjoying it and having
Yes.
fun.
Someday when we can
Someday.
do those things again.
Yeah, someday when Comic-Con is back to
Yeah.
being a live thing.
Mhm.
The other part of this movie that really touches on, and I'm kind of curious to your guys' opinions on this movie definitely lampoons these Star Wars, Star Trek debates. I mean, these two fandoms have been pitted against each other since the dawn of sci-fi, really.
Mhm.
So Star Trek, the original series, ran from 1966 to 1969, a solid 10 years before Star Wars was a thing.
Yep.
But the first film didn't come out until 1979, 2 years after Star Wars, and was definitely, the studio was 100% willing to greenlight because of Star Wars success.
Yeah.
These always been at each other. J.J. Abrams' grittier Star Wars film came out in 2009, which is the same year as this film. And then he, of course, also went on to direct The Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker, to middling results. But I'm curious, are either of you guys Star Trek fans? I don't know if
I will go first because I have seen one episode of Star Trek, and it was the Patrick Stewart version. I do not even remember the name of the show. I'm so sorry.
Oh, we're gonna talk about that.
Yeah. So a high school teacher made us watch it because he was just a big Trekkie fan, and he didn't want to teach that day.
Fair.
So we watched a Star Trek episode. I don't really remember what happened, but Data was like the main plot point. I don't know.
Oh, it's probably Measure of a Man.
Yeah, is that the lawyer one where they have to decide if he has his own rights?
If he's, yeah.
Could
They
be. It
basically
was
remade
over
in
10
Voyager
years
and
ago.
never made a reference to TNG.
I've seen the first two of the Chris Pine movies. They were good, I guess. I don't know. I respect Star Trek. Like, I'm not one of those Star Wars fans who's going to be like, "Oh, Star Trek is the worst." I respect it, but I've never attempted to engage in it. I just I don't know. I found my sci-fi love elsewhere, which is funny though because I love Mass Effect so much in video games, and it's heavily influenced by Star Trek. So I probably should watch at some point. The new one on CBS looks good.
Yes, Discovery is very good.
There are 3 of them now.
Freaking
Oh my
Patrick
God.
Stewart one, Daniel.
See, okay, this is where I real quick, I don't know where to jump in. There's too many. Now you're
There's a
telling me
lot.
there's 3 on CBS All Access? Come on.
Yes, there are. I've seen most of Trek. I watched Next Generation. Daniel, that's what it's called.
Thank you.
As it aired. I need to catch up on Discovery and watch Lower Decks. And then the new season of Picard will come out soon, I'm sure. But otherwise, I've watched all the TV shows and the movies. First Contact, Daniel should watch that. It's a perfect sci-fi film. It's super brutal. And Patrick Stewart just gets to unleash his like crazy Shakespearean talent. Like, it's amazing how good he is.
He
in that
is
movie.
a talent.
Deep Space Nine is my favorite TV show. I stan a Simple Taylor all day. I like both of the properties. I would prefer Star Wars a little bit because of Rebels. But also, I really like the Orville. I hope that comes back soon, which is kind of like a lampooning of Star Trek, but is also so much better than it should be.
Yeah,
they started to kind of get away from the comedy aspect and embrace more of the heart. And it's still funny. Don't get me wrong.
Yes,
it's still ridiculous, but it's so funny.
Bring it back. Give it to us, cowards.
Yeah, Seth MacFarlane, come on. Yeah, I mean, I got into Star Trek post-college. So my roommate was a big Star Trek fan. And a couple of years before that, I had binged my way through all of Stargate and Stargate Atlantis and Stargate Universe. So I was like, all right, I need kind of a new thing, a new show to watch. This is right when binging was starting to really become a thing. So at his behest, I started watching the original series. That one actually took me a while. Don't at me, people. The original series is my least favorite of the series. But it became my project over the next like 2 to 3 years. I would put on, a couple episodes here and there, binge my way through. I made it through the original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, which was my favorite, Voyager, Enterprise, not as bad as everyone says. Still not good. Still not great, but all right. And then all of the films across all the series, plenty of ups and downs throughout it in terms of quality, in terms of writing, but it was really cool. And one thing I truly noticed is that I actually started to understand a lot of references and other things. Like I'd watch repeats of old Simpsons or Family Guy or anything, and I would suddenly understand a joke, and I'd be like, I had no idea that was a Star Trek gag.
So much seeps into the consciousness.
So many things have gone over my head.
And now I keep up with all the new stuff. Picard was all right. Discovery season 3 was really good, and Lower Decks is one of the funniest things to come out in the last few years.
I really want to watch Lower Decks. Tawny Newsome, one of the main voice actresses in that show, I find her very funny. I listened to one of her podcasts, and I really like her. So I kind of want to just get into Lower Decks just for her. But do you need to have watched the shows to get this, don't you?
Not really. I would say
Really?
there are some like deep cut jokes, like they'll have the name of a planet or something like that, or the name of a particular decree or something that if you haven't watched, you may not understand the reference, but you'll understand the meaning behind the thing. So it's really it's okay.
Cool.
But all that is to say, I mean, these two fandoms have been pitted against each other. This is one of those things that I feel like is almost an entirely media made type thing. Like I've never seen Star Wars and Star Trek fans actually go at it with each other.
No, never.
Matter of fact, there's a decent amount of overlap.
Right? Yeah. For real. Everybody that I know that likes both.
I don't feel the need to go out there and fight some Star Trek fans with shovels to
You don't need to go to Iowa and fight people.
no, like
Only if they dress
do
up
I-
as Spock and call Han Solo a little bitch.
Well, yeah,
Then
that-
we're gonna
that
have some words.
Wasn't very nice. I mean, that's
well,
just-
you don't call Han Solo a little bitch. That's just no.
How dare
You don't do that, and I won't
Harrison
make
Ford
fun of
is a
Spock.
treasure. Leonard Nimoy, also killer.
Mhm.
Oh man. Our next category I'm kind of excited to talk about. It is the fandom quote unquote litmus test. The are you really a fanboy, fangirl? Are you really a fan situation? As a fan of the lady persuasion, this crap gets to me so much. The number of times some dude has tried to, well, actually me about fandom, not exclusively Star Wars, other fandoms.
Mm-hmm.
It is my intense pleasure to verbally body slam them with like sweet, sweet facts. Be like, no,
Yes.
bitch.
Yes.
Step back. No. It's really realistic though. Very, very realistic. It belongs in the movie, obviously. I just wish people would stop challenging each other's love for something. Like for real, just
Absolutely.
enjoy that someone else loves the thing you love, because then you can bond over it and geek out together. Like welcome the people into the fandom. Don't chase them away by being that guy. Don't do it.
Yeah.
It's so
And it is usually
Yeah.
that guy.
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't need to
Sorry,
be a
sorry, my
competition.
dudes, but it is usually a guy that is doing
Yeah.
it. What do you guys think about
Yeah.
this situation?
I mean, you're definitely right. I'm sorry from all the dudes. I really hate when people try and gatekeep fandom like that. We're like, oh, you haven't read the most obscure 1984 cereal box comic. You obviously don't care. It's like, okay, man, like I have a job. I have things to do. Can you calm down? Like I didn't read a lot of the extended universe non-canon stories. Sorry, that doesn't make me not a fan. Like, I mean, maybe I'm not as deep of a fan, but I mean, it doesn't mean I didn't enjoy the stuff. I played like tons of the video games. I collected the Legos. I played the stories in my head and like, what are all these alternate things? Like, there's different levels of fandom, and it really drives me nuts when people try and make a competition out of it instead of seeing like, oh, you love this thing about the fandom. Well, I love this thing. I don't know about that one. Let's like trade stories. I would much rather see that cooperative side to it. And it's nice that the internet has helped build some of those spaces, while at the same time, it also inundates everyone with the worst parts of fandom. So, it's a bit of a double-edged blade.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like anytime I hear about people gatekeeping fandoms. I do find it kind of ridiculous. That being said, I'm a 6'3" straight white guy. People tend not to challenge my fandom.
Right.
Just as a general thing, like
Not even once.
just it happens to be that way. Shocker. I mean, I never got competitive over fandom. Well, it's actually just a teeny lie. The one thing I used to get really competitive about was Harry Potter trivia, but that's just because
Yes.
like my brain is wired to remember random facts. Like I'll read the books a couple of times and then I'll be able to pull up the most obscure details for no reason. I was not paying attention to this. That's how my brain absorbs things. So that was the one thing I would get competitive about. Would be like, nah, I can Harry Potter trivia you under the table.
Well, if you're challenged.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
challenged.
You really have to
but
step
then
up to
it's
the challenge.
necessary.
Absolutely. But when it comes to Star Wars, I think one of the things that's good about the Star Wars fandom, in reality, not on Twitter, not
No, don't go online.
Yep.
truly, there is a space for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think we'll talk about this more when we get to one of our other bonus pods about expanding the franchise, about Disney's efforts around that, but they still have a long way to go.
Indeed.
Speaking of, Colleen, you want to take us into our next little piece?
Yes, I do. The woman is going to speak again. Women in fandoms represented in this movie by Kristen Bell. She's awesome. She's strong. She's just as big of a fan as the boys are, but they still have that general men-only attitude about her, even though she's slaying. I wish they'd shown her actually getting the Star Wars questions right with Danny McBride instead of just the sex questions, because come on. Can we show her getting like some Princess Leia stuff right that the guys don't get? Can we do that? Like we've been talking about, there is a real problem with the toxic fandom with Star Wars, mostly online. If you see somebody in person, they're probably not going to call you out on something unless they're a huge dick. But online, it's awful. And it's not exclusive to straight men, but sorry, it mostly is them.
Yeah.
The majority, it's like a 97, maybe 98% there. Recently, this was really disgusting. This is an avid cosplayer and a Star Wars super fan. Her name is Christina Ariel. She was attacked online. She had been named the host of the High Republic show, which is the new series of books and other media that's going to be coming out for Star Wars this year. She was called out for being a quote-unquote racist, and then she was subject to horrific racism and sexism on Twitter. It was awful. I will not repeat anything that was said to her or about her because it was that bad. And it's unacceptable. Like, seriously, y'all, it's faking in space. Like, yes, it means a lot to us, but you shouldn't be losing your mind over a woman of color expressing an opinion about something that you love. It's just terrible. And it's not the first and it's not the last time that it's going to happen to someone who doesn't fit the quote unquote fan mold, especially for something like Star Wars.
Yeah.
So it's just icky. I wish they'd gone over it a little bit more in this movie, but it wasn't that kind of time frame for it.
No, but actually that whole plot line really stood out to me this time as I watched it. That was the one that actually just jumped off at me, and I was like, oh my God, all these things that I don't actually know how much of it was intentional in terms of actually trying to make that storyline kind of come into play, but kind of putting a 2020, 2021 read on the movie, it does actually illustrate that very well, that she can be a total fan. She can be the strongest one of the group, the one that bails them out. And the coolest. And the one who like stands up and says, no, I came all the way out here for you guys. You're breaking into George Lucas's house. I'm coming.
Yeah, I'm not
like,
going
screw
home.
that.
Ugh.
Just a little bit more context on the Christina Ariel piece. She was called out for, people called her a racist for commenting on the presence of systemic racism in the United States, particularly under the former administration, and some other things. And that was when people, that was what people decided to dig up and say that she is racist against white people and has no business hosting a Disney fan show.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely ridiculous. Disney, to their credit, came to her defense and stood by her. Would have been nice if they had done that for Kelly Marie Tran.
Yeah. We'll talk about that when we get to The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
It is still nice to see that they stood up for her, especially after, I don't know if you guys remember in the wake of the first trailer for The Force Awakens, but the amount of disgusting racism that was portrayed because of Finn being a black stormtrooper. I mean, just, it was so gross. Everything that was said about John Boyega and all this stuff. And it's just, it's nice to see that the internet is really, a good portion of it is standing up to that now and standing up for people like, you know, John Boyega, Christina Ariel, and Kelly Marie Tran. It's so lovely to see the Kelly Marie Tran fans online who absolutely will not take that.
No, they will not.
Yes. So thank you to all the people that stand up to, you know, racism and sexism and homophobia, especially because my experience of seeing people's reactions to Finn Poe shippers was not fun. A lot of people were very against that, and even offended at the small token lesbian kiss that we got at the end of Rise of Skywalker. You know, not great being a queer fan sometimes, but it is getting better, and you know, we're slowly getting more and more representation. I will say, shout out to the High Republics. This is a small little spoiler, but it is nice seeing just a gay couple, a powerful gay couple at that.
Really
and
powerful.
It's not, and it's really like, they don't play it up. They don't make it this big, like, ooh, look, we put in a gay couple. It's just, here they are. They just exist. And it's nice. I would like more of that, please.
Yes. Give us Singer, you cowards. Give Singer to us now.
I mean, I'm sorry. You can't have two people as electric as John Boyega and oh my
Oscar
gosh,
Isaac.
Oscar Isaac. How could I
No.
blank on my favorite's name? They're
Thinking
two.
about John Boyega, it's fine.
Yeah, I was thinking about John Boyega, honestly. Their chemistry in Force Awakens is through the roof. And come on, that hug, the expression they give each other when they're reunited, and then you recreate the Han Leia Hoth scene in Home One. Like, come on. You can't throw us that bone like that and make everyone
There.
like, come on, it's right there. So it's getting better. It's slowly getting better to be a fan that's not just a straight white dude. But it could go faster. It could go a lot faster.
Could go faster. There are countless examples of the double standard in this. I mean, two very prominent female geeks out there, Olivia Munn and Aisha Tyler, who I want to be in everything. I love them.
Yes.
They're incredible. But every time they end up cast in, or they're at a panel, they're hosting a panel at like Comic-Con or something, and there's this like huge backlash that these women of color are doing this stuff, and they feel the need to post these pretty damn epic takedowns with their bona fides.
Yes.
And they're very satisfying to see, but the idea that they're necessary is, I think, just
I mean, the fact that anyone would question their credentials, like, come on, they've been in the fandom, they've been like in the nerd fandom, like in the trenches for so long.
Whereas someone like TSR Carr. Whereas someone like Joe Manganiello is famous for his Dungeons and Dragons game.
Yes.
So he can be a nerd and potentially make money off it, do fundraisers off of it.
Yep.
But then people question, does Aisha Tyler actually play video games? Like, come on, she's been doing this forever. Come on.
She's been playing them longer than you, probably. So sit down, please.
And also, I just have to say, Aisha, thank you so much for being the voice of Lana Kane in Archer. You are fantastic. I love her.
I love her. I want her cast in everything. The fact that she hosted the Boys after show was so good.
Amazing. Put her in more things.
But all of this kind of gets back to the speech in the hospital, this concept of what this movie, what these stories ultimately mean to us. And this scene, I think, is truly the heart of the movie. I mean, there are some great gags in it, naming your left and right hand Leia.
Yeah. Of course.
Yes. And all this stuff. But what these stories ultimately do, and they bring us together, and they do in fact bring together people from all across the spectrum. The movie ends with the older brother showing up. He was a total dick at the start of the movie, and they're like, what are you doing here? This is the premiere of Star Wars. And he's like, dude,
it's the wars, bro.
It's the wars.
Of course he's coming.
That truly all of these different people can come together with
and enjoy it.
Unless, as they say right the very last line in the movie, what if it sucks?
Yeah.
But you know what? That's part of the fun of it too, is getting to make fun of it with friends.
Yes.
I'm just very thankful that throughout the years I have been able to feel some really powerful emotions with friends and family through stories that we love. I mean, I'll never forget my mom and I kept stealing the 7th Harry Potter book from each other. And like, we'd see each other's like horrified looks or like elated looks and be like, oh wait, no, don't tell me. Like, I want to find out. Or like my brother and I going to see Rogue One together and just the shock on our faces as we left the theater and just staying up all night talking. Or when my best friend and roommate and I finally watched Rebels in early quarantine, and he was there to hold me during some very emotional moments that we won't spoil.
This is a kids show. Yeah, sure it is.
So it's amazing. It's these stories that people are like, oh, it's just like nerd culture, but like these stories stick with us, and they things like Star Wars have stuck around this long for a reason, because it brings people together, and you feel real things for these characters. And so that's why I love the through line of their friendship, because it is the heart of the movie. It's the most powerful thing, and I related to it so much because I'm like, that if one of my friends had terminal cancer and we were like, oh wait, we can get you the screener, let's go, let's do that.
This is make a wish that right now.
Yeah, like I was completely sold on the emotion of it. So
Mhm.
it resonated with me.
I agree. Whenever somebody says it's just something, it's like, oh, you just haven't experienced it the way I have. That's not
Yeah.
bad that you don't connect with it like I do, but then don't also belittle me because I enjoy something. It's not just a movie for some people. For some people,
Mhm.
it is life. Like it's their life. They love this. It gives them hope. Like that's the entire freaking purpose of Star Wars is hope
Yeah.
and
It's not just a
love.
story, it's not just a sport, it's not just
Right.
a book, whatever
Mhm.
you're talking about. Things matter to people, and I
Yep.
think it's wonderful to find those common ground when you find something that matters to you also.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And it's connectivity. It helps people relate to each
Yeah.
other. I don't see why that would be a bad thing.
Exactly.
Very, very true. All right, and I think that that is a good note to end it on. So, as always, we end this episode with our recommendations. And today we're going to change things up a little bit. Given that the nature of this episode has been fandom and fanboys, we're going to give you guys some of our recommendations for some fandom content. So, I'm going to start us off by recommending that you all go to YouTube and search Triumph the Insult Comic Dogs Attack of the Clones. This is one of the funniest things I have ever seen. I remember watching this just on repeat. He's at like the premiere for Attack of the Clones, and all the cosplayers, everybody's outside. They're doing random stuff, reenacting parts of the movie. He is absolutely skewering them, but everyone's in on the joke and everyone's having a good time with it. And there's a very, very adorable moment with like a little girl dressed as a princess, and even he doesn't have a joke. He's like, "That's adorable."
Yeah, that's just
Aw.
cute. That's
I'm
just
also
fine.
going to recommend that you check out the Star Wars episode of The Toys That Made Us on Netflix.
Mm.
This is a docuseries about several famous major toy lines, and this episode tracks the major rise of Star Wars toys and how George Lucas made the best merchandising deal in the history of the universe. And talking about stuff particularly made by fans, I'm going to recommend the Quim History podcast.
Mm-hmm.
This is a podcast about women in history behaving badly, and they have a stellar multi-episode series on Carrie Fisher.
So good.
We've talked a few times about how much we love Carrie Fisher and her personality, both in the movies, outside the movies, her extremely prolific writing career that she had. So please, please check that out. We'll put a link in the show notes.
Definitely check out Robot Chicken, all of their Star Wars content. This show was produced by Seth Green and Matthew Steinrich, and it's mostly just Palpatine dunking on Vader, which I'm here for. It's seriously the funniest parody content, to me at least, that I've ever seen for Star Wars. I was like sobbing with laughter over a couple of these, like not even very long sketches, just like very, very short bits, and it's just so good. And Seth Green loves Star Wars. Bring it on more Robot Chicken. Also want to do one more shout out for Kin Folklore podcast. We have shouted them out before, but again, there's some really cool news on the horizon for Atla fans, and I think the two hosts of Kin Folklore are going to be real excited about it and might be giving us more content soon on it. Daniel, I know you're excited about that too.
I'm about to lose my mind when I read that headline. I'm so excited.
Thank you, everyone who watched Atla and Korra on Netflix, because I'm pretty sure that those numbers are what. Yeah, Anders is waving. If you can't see us, Anders is waving.
I own the Blu-ray of both shows, and I watch it all on Netflix now because I'm like, no, get that streaming. Like, you need these numbers. Yep. Oh my gosh. Well, I would like to recommend the Star Wars Explained YouTube channel. They are a fantastic channel. There's plenty of lore and question and answer videos. Plus the hosts, Alex and Molly, are just very nice people. I enjoy their content a lot. I also am just going to say, play Star Wars video games. They're just a lot of fun. Like, I don't care what era you're in. Not only did we get the Avatar news today that made me happy, but for all my PlayStation playing friends, I'm very excited that they now get to play Republic Commando, the game that I recommended, like, I think 2 episodes ago.
Yay.
And so I'm like, oh, this is amazing. It's getting ported to the new systems. I'm like, yes, everyone just play Star Wars video games. I love them. And then I do have to say special thank you to the MCU for helping very much bring nerddom into the mainstream. I was 14 when I saw Iron Man, and I have never looked back on the MCU. And also have to give a shout out to yet another MCU podcast. They are getting close to finishing their run, and so thank you to our Forgotten Entertainment friends.
Yes, thanks, you guys. Your pods are hysterical.
They are. I feel I got some thoughts for you, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Is it about Thor Ragnarok?
No, I'm actually talking. I'm thinking about. Well, yes, actually Ragnarok, but I'm more thinking about Endgame.
Okay.
Ooh, haven't listened to that one yet. I will be excited to tell you.
I was gonna say, that one's in my queue still.
Yep.
And lastly, I think we would be absolutely remiss if we did not plug the podcast that ultimately actually brought the three of us together, and that would be Binge Mode from The Ringer.
Yeah.
It's really weird that we're recording this episode just a few days after they aired their potential final episode with the original hosting team. Jason and Mel, we love you. Check out Binge Mode on Spotify if you are a fan of anything, but particularly Star Wars, Harry Potter, the MCU, Game of Thrones, if you read the Saga comics, and a bunch of other random things that they've done over the last few years.
Gonna have to remember to shout out Saga some more too as we go along.
Yeah, that's gonna be my next purchase.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at YASWpod. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, and check out all of the offerings in the Forgotten Entertainment family at ForgottenEntertainment.com. You can also find Colleen and I on the Bohemian Geek Studies podcast, where we are currently diving into Star Wars Rebels. You can also find Colleen's Star Wars book reviews on BohemianGeekStudies.com. And tune in again with us next time when we will be getting into the details of galactic trade and taxation laws. As we start the prequels with Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
I can't wait.
I love taxes.
Tax season, y'all.
I got my tax refund today, so you know what? I'm in. Let's do it.